Howdy, my friend. Hey, it's been a while since I went through my monthly game playing experiences. I know this series of videos hasn't been really that popular, but some people have remarked that they kind of enjoy seeing my list of games and it gives them some ideas of some things to try out. So I'll go ahead and do this. It doesn't take very long, and you can kind of see what I've been playing. I do want to say, though, that I actually won a game last week at the local game group here. Yay! It's a game called Res Arcana, and I really like the game. And I always come that close, like one more turn, and I can take it home. Well, I actually won last week. That made me feel pretty darn good. So I got together with my friends I get together with about 3 times a year or so, and we spend a whole weekend playing board games and card games. And so this is that list, and I'll just go through them real quick here and you can see what we played. The first game on the list was 10 Days at Our National Parks. I don't have a copy of that with me because I gifted it to my friends because they had just come off from a vacation visiting a bunch of national parks. It's one in the 10 Days series that started out with out-of-the-box games, and I've got 10 Days in the USA and 10 Days in Europe, and then 10 Days in Asia. I do not have a copy of 10 Days in Africa. The price of that's just gone up crazy, but if you have a copy that you want to get rid of, let me know. Well, we found this one to be kind of hard because of the fact that we're really not as familiar with the national parks as we should be, and so finding your way around the map was quite a challenge. It's a great game. I really enjoy this series of 10 Days games. We also played a card game called Beat the Heat. That's a very interesting little game. It's actually an incarnation of a game called Six Nimmt by Wolfgang Kramer. That was first published back in 1994. It got very, very popular under the name Take 5. And according to the Board Game Geek website, it's been published by 43 different companies under 43 different names. But it's all essentially the same game with slight variations in rules. But it's a fast little push your luck game I really enjoyed. You've got 104 numbered cards. You put 4 of them on the table randomly dealt out that create 4 columns. And you play cards to these columns to build up a series of cards. And then at some point you have to decide to take a row of those cards. And your objective is to have the lowest possible score. So it's really a fun little game and kind of challenging. It's got a certain frustration level with it. It took a few rounds to get into the rhythm of the game, but once we did, it went fairly well, and I really enjoyed that. Next is another one that's been around for years, and it's very similar, and it's called Coloretto. It was first published in 2003 by Abacus Spiel. I think that was the first version. But it's very similar in that you've got seed cards, and you're building rows of cards, and at some point you need to decide when to take those, and you're trying to build sets of colors. The trick on this one, though, it's got a Knizia type of a scoring at the end, that you only score the colored rows that you have the most of, and then the ones that you have the least of are counted as negative points. So you're kind of playing that balance game as you go. We also played The Gang. That's a fairly new game, sort of a Texas Hold'em, but it's a cooperative game. And got to convince your other players by your reactions, telegraph to them how good your hand is. Your self-evaluation there can change every time a new card comes out on the table. So you may be working on a straight, but then that other card comes out and you lose it. So what you thought was a really strong hand could end up being pretty low. There could be another player around the table that's working on a full house, and you don't know that. And so they're going, no, I've got the best hand. No, I've got the best hand. And eventually you get to the point where everybody reveals their cards and you find out. It's really neat. I like The Gang quite a bit. It's fun, and it kind of combines those poker hands, which most people are at least marginally familiar with. They give you a cheat sheet so that you can keep track of that. Oh Crud is a game that came out in 2021 from Getty Games. I've never seen it on a shelf anywhere, but it may come from one of those little boutique stores or souvenir stores or something like that. It's a simple trick-taking game, and it has 6 suits, numbered 1 through 9. But it also comes with 2 dice. And those 2 dice, one of them determines a suit, and then the other die is a variable in a set of rules. So you play 6 rounds, and each round has a set of rules to go by, kind of like Oh Hell or Beggar Your Neighbor sort of a thing. But there's that variable in there, so it changes up every time. In the end, it really all works out that it doesn't have a great effect on how you play the game, except for what you are dealt. The last round, on the other hand, is sort of a catch-up round. If a player is in last place, they do have still a chance to catch up in that last round. It's called O-Crud. The OP came out with a new game this year, designed by Jason Tremblay, and it's called Tacta. I showed up late to a game night one time, and the guys were playing it, so I had a chance to watch it being played, and I immediately knew this was something right up my alley. It's a very geometric game, and you are trying to overlap these colored cards and your opponent's cards as you go, and if you configure the layout just right, you can protect your cards from being overlapped. The little dots on the cards are the points you get, and so ultimately you want to have the most points on the table when the whole thing is done, when you've gone through the whole deck. You'll want a big space to play on, because it does take an awful lot of room to play this game, but it's really a cool little game. I really enjoyed playing Tacta. It's a lot like the Rhombus game that's in our catalog. You might want to go check that out if you like that geometric pattern making sort of a game. Now, there are several games on store shelves these days that use Venn diagrams. So we played this game that was just called Venn. And we found it was really hard, especially the first time through as we kind of got used to it. It's a team game where you're giving clues and the rest of your team is guessing and trying to figure out the words. It starts out interestingly with a list of words, and then there's a list of numbers next to each of these words, all randomized, and then the team leader, the clue giver, gets a card that says which of those 10 words they're trying to convey. The cards that you use to convey the clues are Dixit-style cards with artwork on them, and you place those on the Venn diagram so that you have some commonality between the different circles. And that's what makes it really hard, because trying to find 2 clue cards that have overlapping messages, that part of them might be unique but part of them might be common. It's a brain burner, I thought. We got better at it as we went, because your mind kind of gets into the groove after a while, but it was pretty tough. It's a game called Venn from the OP Game Company. And then we played Wordsy. Now, Wordsy's been out for a while. They just recently came out with a more modern version that's kind of got a whimsical steampunk sort of look to it. The original was more academic looking. I had played the newer version at one of our game groups, and when I came back home, I was thinking about that, saying, I know I've played that game before. It's very familiar. So I checked in my collection, and sure enough, I had a copy of the first edition of Wordsy. And not only that, but as I played it, I said, this feels like another game still. And so I found out then that it actually is an updated version of a game called Prolix. And remarkably, both these games were designed by Gil Hova. So I guess it makes sense that they kind of felt familiar to me. The challenge is that you have an array of letters dealt out onto the table, and then each column of letters is worth a different number of points. You are supposed to come up with the longest word that you can to use as many of those letters as you can. And you want to use the higher scoring letters, of course, more than the others. It sounds really tough, and we were all coming up with, 8 and 9 and 10 letter words. But the more you do it, in my opinion anyway, the more you do it, the more you realize the power of prefixes and suffixes and so on. Of course, there's a timer, and that's always a big challenge. But I really enjoyed Wordsy, and I would definitely recommend it, especially if words are your thing. If you're into grandiloquent word crafting, or you're just a natural erudite sesquipedalian. We also replayed a bunch of games that we usually play when we get together. That included The Game, Just One, Smug Owls, Push, and Xylotar. We had a lot of other games we play normally that we didn't get to, but we had a good time. And after all, that's the point. So, have you played any of these games? Do you feel good about them? You like them? You don't like them? You got recommendations that are similar? I would definitely like to hear from you. But whatever you play, whatever you recommend, be sure to play every day. Takes a lot of games to play every day, unless you play the same game over and over again. But I have to confess, I have a lot of games in shrink wrap. Stuff I bought, stuff I backed on Kickstarter that just never got opened. Here's a real quick view of my shelf of shame. It's unfortunately growing faster than I can possibly get to these games. So thanks for tuning in again, and I will be with you again next week with more historic games.